Hey guys, it's Emily. Welcome to Posy Lane. Have you ever gotten into August and school starting, maybe you're a teacher or your kids are in school and things just start getting crazy busy. And before you know it, it's Thanksgiving and Christmas and bam, the new year has already happened and you go, where has all the time gone? I know I've felt that way. And one thing I've started to do is just try to be really intentional with the end of the year to make sure that I get my goals done and just really stay focused even through all the crazies. And one way I've found to do this is by having a gratitude journal kind of thing where I just think of something that I'm grateful for. So I'm challenging myself and I'm challenging you to do a 31-day challenge where we think of something that we're grateful for every day in August. We're going to be doing that with index cards and binder rings to make a booklet. And in the booklet, we'll write down one thing a day that we're grateful for. I don't know about you, but I love fresh office supplies. There's something about a whole pack of paper that's never been opened before, or fresh pencils with an eraser that's never been used, or crayons that are all have that perfect point still, and I just love having an excuse to buy some office supplies. So for our supplies today, you have an excuse to go buy some fresh supplies. Most of the stuff we can find almost anywhere, but these few things I could only find really at the office supply store. We need a date stamp and a stamp pad and 1-inch book binder rings. We need 2 of them. And all those things I found at the office supply store. The rest of this, we have a fresh set of index cards, some cardstock. You really only need one 12 by 12 sheet, a pencil and a fine point Sharpie, a glue stick, something to cut our paper with, and something to punch our holes with. It's a 31-day challenge because there's 31 days in August. So I'm going to count out 31 index cards, 1 for each day. I'm using the 3-hole punch to punch out my index cards. I feel like that's going to go a lot quicker, but if you don't have a 3-hole punch, you can always just use a 1-hole punch to punch your holes. Don't be like me. Before I started to punch the holes the first time, I had dated all of my cards. And then I just punched the holes and accidentally went through all of the dates and had to redo it all over again. We're going to be using a date stamp to date all of our cards. But if you don't have a date stamp, you can always just write it by hand. For me, I love having an excuse to use office supplies and to use a stamp because it reminds me of playing Office when I was little. I don't know if you played Office when you were little, but we would get fresh notepads and papers that you could fill out, and then it would have a carbon copy underneath. We would stamp them and approve them, and the one person was a boss and would hand you a stack of papers and you'd pretend. So it just reminds me of getting to play Office when I was a kid. I have this whole stack of cardstock that's different shades of green, but I think I'm going to use the dark green one. I love the way it's kind of moody, and really we only need 1 sheet of cardstock for this. We're going to trace out the shape of the front and back cover and also some inserts that we need, and we need 5 of them. We're going to be using an index card so that we know the shape, and I'll just trace on the corners so I know where to cut. After I've traced out 5 cards, I'm going to use my paper cutter to cut them out. I don't know about you, but I cannot cut a straight line freehand to save my life. So this paper cutter I've had for over 20 years and is a lifesaver. When I use the paper cutter, I just want to make sure that I'm lining up where I had traced those lines, and I'm going to cut them all out. We now have our 5 cards ready to use, and I'm going to decorate them. And I'm going to just use the back of an index card so that the lines aren't showing, and cut it smaller so that it kind of looks like the green is creating a border around the white index card. For our cover, I'm going to write out 31 Day Reset, which is the title of our challenge. And I always use a pencil when I'm writing out something like this because I can always erase it if I use a pencil. And then once I like the way it looks, I use a black fine point Sharpie and trace over it. For the inserts, I'm going to be placing them like every 7 days, about once a week. I decided to use simple words that remind me about being grateful and gratitude. I kept it simple with just one word too, because when you trace over with a black marker, the marker tends to bleed and you need a little bit more room. If you want to get better with your handwriting or like create a font, for me a few years ago, I found some free handwriting courses because my handwriting was pretty messy. And I found that as I traced things over and over, my hand created this muscle memory so that when I started to write letters out, it was almost like default and would look a lot nicer and a lot cleaner than it used to. If you don't want to handwrite and decorate the inserts that way, you can always use a Word document and find a font that you like and write out the words and print them out and paste them onto the inserts. I don't know if you've ever heard this poem before, but my kids had to memorize it for school, and so that meant that I memorized it. And it's a Mother Goose rhyme called The Months. It goes 30 days, half September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31, except for February alone, which has 4 and 24, till leap year gives it 1 day more. And that's how I remembered that August had 31 days. My front cover looks really good, and now all the other inserts are also ready too. It's time to put all of it together to get the covers, and the inserts, and all the dated cards and assemble this thing. I'm going to put the cover on first, and then I'll get a week's worth of dated cards and put them in. And then from there on out, I'll just repeat that pattern of putting an insert in and then another week's worth until I'm done with the month. I've wanted to have a good cover on it and use cardstock because I'm hoping that I can come back to this every year and look at what I was grateful for and write down new things that are happening so I can reflect on things in the past and see where I'm going in the future. Making all of this reminds me of when I was super into card making. I don't know if you ever went through like a card making phase, but seriously, everyone I knew got a handmade card. I had like 3 or 4 containers full of like ink and stamps and cardstock and paper cutters and circle cutters and punch outs to make my cards, and they were pretty awesome. I loved having an excuse to use office supplies. It brought me back to my school days and having fresh things to get to open and use. It was so fun. I know this is different than some of the other things, but I love how practical and useful this is, and I love how sophisticated and simple it looks, so it will look really pretty when I leave it on my nightstand to remind myself every day to write down something that I'm grateful for. If you want to join along with me, I will be posting on Instagram every day in August something that I'm grateful for, It's at Posy Lane. And if you want to tag me, if you make one, I would love to see what you made too.